Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we are broadcasting live from our studio inside Renaissance Bank in Alpharetta. And folks, if you've got a big bank experience that you've been tattooed with recently, and you know what I mean, computer-generated voices, they really don't want to talk to you, and they kind of make that obvious. Well, here's a solution for you. It involves going to renaissancebank.com and finding your local office. They've got some 200 across the South ready to serve you, and give them a call. Now, if they don't pick up the phone, it will go to a person's voicemail, like a real person's voicemail, and they'll call you back. Imagine that. And what will happen is you'll be able to come in and check them out and talk to a live person about your particular needs and what Renaissance can do for you. And I think what you'll find is Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them, but small enough to do it in a personal way. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Mark Hayes, an old friend, back on the show. Mark is with Mark Hayes Consulting.
Yes,
Mark,
indeed.
Welcome.
Thank you. Still standing.
Still standing.
After 4 years, still going strong.
Yeah, I'd say still crazy after all these years, but you're not crazy, man. So, but for the three people out there that don't know who Mark Hayes is, provide an introduction.
Oh, you're too kind. Well, I did 10 years at Good Day Atlanta here, and loved every second of it as the morning news anchor on Good Day Atlanta from 4:30 to 9. When I left, we were going till 10. Now I think they go all day. So it's Good Day Atlanta all day long. But it was an absolute joy to serve the great citizens of the metro area of Atlanta. I had a 30-year television career. Would do it all again, as crazy as it sounds. I know don't let my wife hear that part.
Okay.
But I dragged her around to some amazing cities. We started in Albany, Georgia, went to Rochester, New York, then to Baltimore, Detroit, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Dallas, Denver, some great stops along the way. My wife did law school while we were in Denver.
Really?
2.5 years with a 6-year-old and a newborn.
Wow. Shout out to her for that.
I married way up.
Wow.
Outkicked my coverage, I like to say.
You and I have that in common. Okay. Wow.
So 30 years in television news, and now I've switched over to entrepreneurship. I didn't quite know what I was going to do. And then I said, well, you know what? Let me help people tell their stories. Let me help people figure out who they are, what the passion is behind the why or the widget, and let me help them tell those stories to their friends and neighbors so that they can patronize them. And it has been some of the most rewarding work that I have ever been a part of. Television news stories were great. Telling those stories were great. You could impact so many people. But being able to see a smile on a business owner's face after a success in the media is just as, if not more so, rewarding, because most of the times in the media we kind of expect success, right?
Right.
Business owners, they're just trying to figure it out. They're like,
Sure.
Is this going to work? Well, okay, if you say so. And then when it works, they look at you like, oh my God, I can't believe you pulled that off.
Yeah.
I can't believe you got me there. I can't believe I'm on CBS television news. And so, it's so gratifying, to be a people pleaser, and, which is really my personality. So, but the other thing is just the freedom, of being an entrepreneur. And I'm starting to understand it more. I got a couple of really ambitious and exciting projects I'm working on because I have the time. I want to write my book. I have a couple of really interesting stories that I'm putting together. So I hope when I get them done, you'll have me back.
Absolutely.
To talk about those.
Yeah.
And my clients right now, I couldn't be more excited about the group of people that I'm working with. It's a small stable, but I keep the lights on. And, we're able to connect. We understand each other, have great working relationships, because I learned early on in this quest that you can't work with everybody, right? You can't say yes to everybody. You can't be all things to everybody.
Right.
Right. And so you have to be able to have the ability to see when the synergy is there and when it's, more importantly, when it's not. Mm-hmm. Because when it's not, that's going to be painful. And the last thing you want to do is, to have some unrealistic expectation set upon you, mm-hmm. or set it for someone else that you can't realize. And I think that's one of the mistakes that people make in the entrepreneurship field as a whole. Sure. Is setting these unrealistic expectations, and then people look at you and say, well, you said you were going to bring me the sun, the moon, and the stars. All I got was the stars.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So, it takes some learning and getting used to, but all money is not good money. Mm-hmm. So you have to realize that and understand that early. And I did. I'm glad I did.
You're unusual then, because everyone goes through this. I went through this, this period of time where any sale's a good sale sometimes, right? And sometimes you take on clients that really aren't a great fit because you're so anxious for that affirmation of the sale.
Absolutely. But you know what I did, John? I got a business coach. And that was the best money I spent.
Really?
Yes. Amy Walker Consulting. She's right up there in Commerce, Georgia. I heard her speak at an event. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to work with, she is who I need. And I'm sure it was no mistake that she and I were both at this event. Mm-hmm. Because I went up and spoke to her and I told her exactly what I needed afterwards. She's like, oh, I'm putting a class together for that right now. And literally a week later, once the big boss signed off on it, I was in her course and working. And I'm telling you, John, that was the best thing I could have done for myself, because we went to Alon's over there by the perimeter. Mm-hmm. We met one day. She had another engagement. We met halfway, and I had no business at the time. And we sat down for lunch over a bagel and a Coke. And 30 minutes later, I had a business with business offerings, and I was off and running.
Wow. Go, Amy. Yes. That is awesome.
And I was like, I said, Amy, I would have never been able to put this together because I didn't understand what kind of transferable skills that I had that could help. I told stories on television. Okay, how does that help business owner? And she's like, oh, well, Mark, every business owner needs to be telling their story right now. Every single one, and think about the stories that commercials are little stories.
Sure.
Right. And what does every story have? A beginning, middle, and end. But not everybody understands the storytelling concept. Right. And not everybody understands how to put things together in a fashion that's memorable. Right. Because that's what all great stories are. You remember stories that you heard 20 years ago.
Sure.
Right. Because they're memorable.
Right.
And, it's that one thing that unites us. It's that common bond is storytelling. Yeah. And when you can tell a great story, people are going to remember you. And if people remember you, they're going to go check out your website. If they check out your website, they just might patronize you.
For sure. So, talk about what you learned. I mean, in the broadcasting world, you saw great stories. You saw mediocre stories and pretty bad ones over time, right? I mean, you've seen it all. Yeah. So talk about what you learned about storytelling out of that.
Yeah. I've created some awful stories.
Well, I wasn't talking about your work, pal. I only remember great stories from you.
Well, I say that because, like, if you're a business owner out there and you're getting ready to get into video and start to tell your story.
Sure.
Right. If you start today, the ones you do today are not going to be as good as the ones that you do 30 days from now or 6 months from now or a year from now. And that's okay. The growth process has to happen, just like it happened for me when I was in Albany, Georgia, down below the gnat line, trying to figure it out. But the one thing that I learned that separates all the great stories from all the others is being able to let a story be told through compelling characters, right? And those characters make themselves vulnerable. They're not afraid to share. Right. My wife used to hate when I was on television in the morning because she said, you share too much. You tell everything. You don't have to tell that the dog jumped on the kitchen table and ate the cake last night. You don't have to say that.
Right.
She's like, why does everybody know when we're out of town? Because you told them.
Right.
So, it's about being vulnerable. It's about sharing. It's about that authenticity. Because especially right now, people's BS antennas are through the roof. Those are those wires that you see sticking through sunroofs as people are driving down the street, right? It's the BS meter.
Right.
And people are looking for genuine and authentic individuals that they can relate to. And if you're willing to share, if you're willing to open yourself up, it's what will lead people to you because they feel like they can trust you. And if they know, like, and trust you, they'll work with you. Before they write you a check, they got to trust you.
For sure. Now, a whole lot of business owners, though, are like your wife, your bride. I mean, they want to talk about the business, quote unquote, and they really don't want to talk about themselves. They want to promote the business. They're not shy in that regard.
Right.
But they don't want to talk about themselves. Talk to that business owner that says, hey, Mark, what does my brand have to do with the business?
Right. Well, your brand is the business, right? What led you to create the widget? What led you to provide a specific service? And, I'm taking an amazing course right now by a social media influencer on YouTube. It's called YouTube for Bosses and the Authority Accelerator. I'm in both courses. And, her thing is you find your niche and you find the power in your pain. And those are the stories, those are the services that you can provide to help provide transformation to people. Because people don't want to pay for information. They want to pay for transformation. So when you can relate to an individual as to why you are providing this specific service and you have a personal experience related to it, they know that you have a different kind of investment. It's not just a capital investment. It's an investment from the heart. Right. And if you're involved in that transformation process, that transformative growth for people, it's a different kind of connection. It's more personal. It's more intimate. And those are the kinds of interactions people are craving. Right. We look for those people that are connected with us in a way that helps us grow. And that's why the power in your pain has resonated with me in such a visceral way. In 2015, I lost my dad. 2016, I haven't lost him. He's still here. Thank God. But my son went to prison as part of this opioid epidemic that is and continues to sweep through our nation.
Right.
And, as a lost soul, he ended up in a Georgia prison. And, my goal now, one of my passion projects is to help families understand when there's a problem. So I'm creating a course on it, and I'll come back and share it with you when it's done. I'm in the process of doing the research right now. And so, if I had to talk to that business owner right now and tell them, where should they start? It's do the research. Who do you serve? Right. What power do you have that emanates from your pain that can help you provide a service that's transformative? And so once you start understanding that it's the why behind the widget, the why behind the service that draws people in, then you start having the kind of success that makes you say, whoa, I never thought this was possible. And then people will come to you, right? Because now you're going to create content that people are actually looking for. And that's all in the course that I'm taking, which just opened my eyes because I thought, well, I'll just make some YouTube videos. People will find it. No, it's all about analytics. It's all about research. It's nothing is left to chance. Right. So you have to understand there are tools out there. Keywords Everywhere is a very inexpensive tool that gives you the insight you need to see what people are actually looking for on YouTube. So if I'm got a shower head I got to put on in the master bath. Okay? Yeah. How many videos do you think I'm going to watch on YouTube?
There you go.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, we don't do anything we don't do anything anymore without watching a video on YouTube.
Yep.
So you have to understand how to connect with the people that are looking for your service or for your product. And that starts with research. So in terms of the research that I'm doing for my course, I'm talking to parents. talking to parents of student athletes, help looking to find the best communication strategies to help parents support their children through difficult times, right? Especially student athletes. I have one son that played college football. He cut us off in the communication process, ended up, as a drug user, ended up in a Georgia prison. I have another son that went through his ups and downs playing college hockey, a couple of surgeries while he was in college at University of Maine. But he talked to us and we got him the support he needed. And then when he was able to, he transferred to University of Alaska, Anchorage, and he kept pushing. And now he's on a pro roster. And so when you have those open lines of communication, you're able to help and support, right? And that's what it's about. I guarantee all the parents that I've talked to, and I've done about 60 interviews already, and they are at their wits' end when it comes to strategizing with their child and the kinds of communication they have. I talked to one dad. He said he put his kid out on Old Milton to tell your mama to come get you. I'm done arguing with you today.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
As they were leaving football practice.
Ah.
Right? So, it's one of those things where you have to find out through the research, how you provide that transformation. Like my experience is one thing, but how can I take that experience and shape it so that it helps another family? Because now all I want to do is help families. Right. And help them not have to go to court and beg for their child's life because they made a mistake. Right. My son has a Howard University degree sitting in a Georgia prison.
Wow.
Like the judge said to us, how did we get here? He's like, I just don't understand. You got a village. You have a formal education. You have parents that have invested in you. How did we get here? So, I know this is a long answer to talking to that business owner, but it's about the research. It's about finding the power in that pain. It's about understanding the transformation you can create. And it's about connecting with your ideal customer. Remember, everybody's not your ideal customer.
Right.
And if you can niche down and find that pool, there's enough there for you to be wildly successful. And that's what people need to understand.
Mark Hayes, folks, he's got his own firm, Mark Hayes Consulting. He's of course, the president and CEO of Mark Hayes Consulting. So, Mark, how has COVID, and I sure will be glad when I don't have to ask questions about COVID, but how has COVID changed your approach to video?
Yeah, number one is we ramped it up even more because that was the best way to connect.
Sure.
If you look at the numbers, I think YouTube is getting 500 hours of video uploaded every minute. So, but it's the best way to contact your customers and to keep in touch with your base. And so the other thing it did, though, was create convenience. Right. And still allow you to do business, with Zoom and these different platforms, meetings and WebEx and all these other Skype and all these other video conferencing apparatuses. You can still do business and still be effective and still have quality communication with people. It's not face to face. It doesn't have that same oomph that face to face does, but it can still be effective. If you light yourself properly, if you're present in the conversation, I've done probably half dozen workshops on how to set your presence and perform during Zoom calls because it's hard, right? And you need energy, right? Yeah. If you've been on 2 or 3 Zooms back to back, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But in my presentations, I say, hey, space these things out. Don't take a 9 to 10, a 10 to 11, 11 to 12. Give yourself an hour break in between. Get up, walk around, re-energize yourself. Because you need to have that energy so the person on the other end understands that you're invested in this conversation. You are present, you are totally there, and you are here to listen and be a part of an active conversation. And being able to see that body language, because remember, it's a visible medium,
Mm-hmm.
So if people can see you and they see you all slouched down in your chair and see you just kind of not paying attention,
Mm-hmm.
that's why people always say, turn your video on.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Turn your video on because we want to know you're paying attention.
Right.
And that's what that's all about. It's about being able to see that other person because body language speaks volumes. It says so much about who you are, how you feel, and what you think about what's actually happening. Right. Because how many times have you been in a conversation and you just looked at the body language and said, oh my gosh, this is not going well. Right.
Right. Yeah.
We could break it down even simpler. You can go to a bar, right? Back in our college days, and we try to talk to a young lady, and her body language says, "Oh, she's involved in something over there."
Right.
Yeah. And it's just turning and going the other way. It's all about reading the room and understanding the body language. So, it's. While it's created a lot of convenience, especially for those of us around the metro area who can't stand Atlanta traffic, it wouldn't bother me if we didn't go back to, face-to-face meetings at 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning where you got to leave 2.5 hours early.
Right.
But, it did definitely make us ramp up our video production because that's the only way people could connect. And to see that you were still alive and kicking is to see some video that they put out, some thought leadership, some storytelling, talking about your wins. It all comes out through video. And again, if you're a good storyteller and you're planning your messaging, it's going to work for you. It's going to be effective for you, especially for your loyal followers.
Sure. So what is the, how do you work with clients, Mark, in terms of, I guess, assessing where they are with video? I mean, someone comes to you and says, I'm not sure if what I've got's working or what have you. Talk about how that conversation unfolds.
Well, it's all about being brutally honest, right? And telling people what they need to hear. But
as opposed to what they want to hear, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you tell them what they need to hear, but then you back it up with facts and you show them, again, with analytics, YouTube has all the analytics you need. You can see who's watching, how long they're watching, what the age groups are, what part of the country they're in. You can find all this information out just with a simple click on your YouTube account. So you have to be able to give them the information too, before you start breaking them down and just hitting them over the head with saying this is not good. You have to be able to tell them why.
Right.
It may be really good and really compelling content, but maybe it's not being packaged correctly. Maybe you're not labeling it correctly. Maybe your screenshots and titles on your YouTube video that people see are not catching people's attention. It could be something as simple as that. And so, there is a process to this stuff. Which I've learned over the last 6 months or so is that, you just can't put it together and throw it out there unless you're somebody, super duper famous, who has that luxury?
Sure.
There's a 1% that have that luxury that don't have to introduce themselves.
Yep.
But, for the rest of us that are out here competing and out here working and entrepreneurs, and if we don't kill it, we don't eat it, we've got to follow the steps. And so there is a method to all the madness. Gone are the days of stuff just going viral. And really, going viral doesn't always help as much as you think, right? Because when something goes viral, the people that are watching it are not usually your ideal customer, right? Those are people that just, I heard about this funny video, let me check it out.
Right.
They're probably not going to come back for the next one. Right. So you'd rather have a steady flow of loyal followers as opposed to one video that went viral and got 1 million views, but maybe you didn't sell anything. Right. I'd rather have 1,000 loyal followers, right, and 1,000 views, but I'm getting 50, 100 sales out of every video I produce. So, there are some people who are simply specializing in creating YouTube videos for people to sell their widgets. And that's all they do. They have a sharing agreement, a sales share agreement, and that's all they do. And everybody wins. And but it's the way things are changing. It's the way things are going now.
Right.
So, you utilize YouTube, which is, the world's best search engine, right? Because Google owns them and, they're funneling all your stuff to YouTube. How many times have you searched something on Google and they pulled up a YouTube video for you and you sat there and watched? So, it really is, all about keeping up with the times, keeping up with the technology, understanding it. And, for dinosaurs like me and you, well, at least for me, it's not as frightening as I first thought. Right. So some of it was intimidating for me, back in 2017 when I was saying, I'm not so much for this, 2:30 a.m. wake up call anymore. I want to sleep till a normal hour.
Right.
I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn how to do that. It's not as frightening and it's not as difficult as you might think,
Well, talk about, I guess, the professionally produced videos versus the selfies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's some folks that have a lower budget and, they need to meet that budget. But talk about the interplay between those two.
Well, it's interesting too, because the Kardashians have done really well just holding their phone in their hands and pointing the camera at themselves. Right? So the Kardashian effect to me is what we should think about. Again, because it provides that originality, that authenticity. It's not, a production. Right? It's not a setup. It's not a script, right? Because when we're scripting things, we tend to begin to sound like Mark Hayes, the news anchor back at right? We want to be who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people love the Kardashians, right? There might be some other reasons.
But I think there are. But anyway, we'll let that go.
Right. That's another show for another day, another topic.
Right.
But if you think about Kim Kardashian regularly goes to Silicon Valley to give talks on social media and her approach to social media. And it's all about originality, authenticity, and talking to her people. Right. And that's why they all do it. And they all have millions of loyal followers, not just a few, but millions of loyal followers. I mean, how did Kylie become a billionaire selling makeup, like lip gloss or whatever?
Right.
I mean, simple stuff. But, besides the authenticity and originality, they have the consistency and they're there all the time. So, when you talk about budget, putting together a budget to shoot video, high quality, well edited, high production value stuff gets pricey. So if you don't have that kind of budget, get yourself a selfie stick and a good microphone and one of those, personal vanity lights and get to it. And you'll see, some of the most effective social media influencers are doing just that. It's not big budget productions. So it's all about the storytelling, consistency, the authenticity, and being engaged in the medium, right? And if you're going to be on, you don't have to be on every medium, right? You don't have to be on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Pick one, right? Pick one, live there, and connect with people. Because when you respond to people, it's the, one of the best things ever. For someone, you made their day just responding to them. When I was on television, if I would, write back to somebody on Twitter, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I never thought you'd write me back. So, there's someone that's going to watch me tomorrow for a simple tweet, and it's the same thing in business. You give somebody a freebie or something, some news they can use, they're going to come back and they're going to support you. Because you went out of your way to take the time. Now, it seems like, some innocuous, simple thing to you, but to them, they may have really needed that information and really needed that boost. And I think the Kardashians, do that better than anybody. They connect with people. I mean, they basically do a show on how they live. Right. I mean, we follow them to the salad bar and next thing you know, everybody's eating those kinds of salads. Right. So, that's how invested people are, in these connections. And remember, there's a lot of lonely people out here, John. and it's getting even lonelier with the pandemic, right? And with COVID,
right.
And people are turning to their phones and their computers even more often, looking for influences. So, if you've got something positive to offer, now is the time. Now is the time. And, and if you're in the mental health space, we're doing online coaching, and online therapy. So, there's no way you can't communicate. I think you have to figure out, where your sweet spot is, what your budget will allow for, but you also have to figure out the best way to tell your story and the most authentic way. That's where I would start.
Let's talk about the kinds of clients you work with.
Yeah.
Mark, industry, any particular industries?
Yeah. Not really. At this early outset of my career, my entrepreneurship career, I've been working with good people. And I've taken relationships that I've had for years and turned them into business relationships, which has been really rewarding. One of my favorite wins, is Quest Communities. They do, affordable housing in the city of Atlanta. They're right on the corner of, Boone and Lowry. They just celebrated 20 years on Friday of, helping vulnerable populations, and 90% of their residents do not return to homelessness. They provide affordable housing options for vulnerable populations. And the CEO, Leonard Adams, has been a friend for many, many years. And I told him I was launching my own business. He said, come by and talk to me. He said, I feel like I'm the best kept secret in Atlanta. Nobody knows about us. I said, well, we'll fix that. And he's right in the throes of, you can throw a football to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, just opened up a 30,000 square foot building. Wraparound services, financial literacy, social services, right in the same building. So you don't have to jump on a bus and try to get to another office when you're looking to get a voucher or something that you need to get into your new housing space. And, he's a visionary. And just watching over the last 3 years, this structure come to pass on the west historic Vine City and English Avenue. This corridor is really coming back, and Arthur Blank gave him $3.5 million.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he's got about $80 million worth of projects that he's working on between now and the next 5 years, that are just adding new life to the west side of Atlanta, right there at the historic Joseph Lowry and the Boone intersection, and it is something to see. So I have really, really enjoyed that. And, I have a client, Real Times Media, out of Detroit. They own 15 African-American themed newspapers, including Atlanta Daily World and Atlanta Tribune. And just an amazing success story, working to preserve the historic archives of these African-American newspapers. And the photo vault alone.
Oh, wow.
Is amazing.
I can only imagine.
Is amazing. When you talk about the Pittsburgh Courier, Chicago Defender, Michigan Chronicle, Atlanta Daily World, you have some of, the most iconic photos that, if I pulled them out, you say, oh my gosh, I know that photo. And it's come from, these publications. So, working with them to, make the transition from print to digital video. And that has been just an amazing experience to work with some of these young, hungry journalists and provide a little direction, share my experiences with them, especially with storytelling. So I have really enjoyed that aspect of it. And folks like Alma Coffee up in we bumped into each other at a TED Talk. Al Lopez and myself, and his two kids are amazing. His son-in-law, Harry, and his daughter, Leticia, run the business, the day-to-day operation, and they are just killing it. Yep. And the coffee, I was not a coffee drinker. I hate
They converted you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was, and the thing about it was I had started drinking coffee for the keto diet. I lost 60 pounds on keto. And, they said, well, Mark, what kind of coffee are you drinking? I said, I don't know. It's like, whatever they have in the grocery store. They just look for the price, whatever's, right? Whatever's the cheapest.
Yeah.
It's coffee, right?
Right.
Does it taste any different? They're like, please, Mark, don't say that again to anyone else out loud, and take this home and try it. And I've been hooked ever since. Yeah. So, it's really good. They're back again. The backstory is amazing. You know, the dad is a veteran, came to the U.S. at 11 years old, didn't speak a lick of English, you know, became a corporate superstar, retired in his 40s, and, you know, decided, how can I give back? And he went back home to the Honduras and created, you know, his own business. He's employing the people from the town that he grew up in. His mom still works in the village, on the coffee farm. She walks to the bank and hands out checks on Fridays. I mean, the story just keeps on giving. Couldn't get any better. And his kids are amazing. Leticia and Harry, if you go there, and you get to see them, get to meet them, they are some of the most amazing kids. We should all be so blessed.
Yeah, for sure.
We should all be so blessed. They're so amazing. So every trip up there is so much fun. I know more about coffee now than I ever imagined.
You've been converted.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, yeah. And yes. And shout out to Leticia and Harry, because I've been out to their facility, and it's something? Yeah, it's something else out just north of Woodstock, folks. Yeah. Right.
And that roaster is the only one of its kind in Georgia.
Really?
Yeah. State of the art, American made, only one of its kind in the entire state. And they have a brand new roaster, who is like the mad scientist of coffee roasting. And you go in there and you see him. I'm like, what could he possibly be doing over there with all that coffee? Yeah. And, you know, he makes the different flavors, and it's all like, I was talking to him one day. I was like, dude, you lost me. You lost me with all the acidity and all that stuff. It's like, thank you, and I appreciate it, but wow, that's a lot. But that's the kind of pride of workmanship that goes into every cup of coffee that they produce. And it's a heartwarming story. Because you go up there, they've got pictures of the workers, from Honduras on the walls, and, you know, they're connected in such a way that just moves you. And when you see, you know, a family as successful as that and as grounded as that, I mean, it just motivates you to want to do something special too.
Sure.
And, you know, and Al, you know, couldn't be a better human being, and, you know, his lovely wife, some of the nicest people I've met, you know, over the last 20, 30 years. And, you know, and I used to say that about TV too, but now that I'm in my own space, you know, I'm just as excited about the people I get to meet.
Wow. You just walked us through a great example of how that storytelling works, how powerful that is. It's not just about the cup of coffee.
No,
it's about what the whole story behind the cup of coffee.
Exactly. Right. And, you know, and that's what, you know, I think a lot of us miss, is because, you know, it's our story. You know, we're so close to it. We're like, well, that doesn't have any value. You know, my story's not special.
Right.
You know, and I had to get past that block thinking, you know, because I sat around for a good year, John, with my head under my pillow thinking, oh, my God, how did this happen to me? You know, how did this happen to my son? You know, okay, how can I help people? Well, is anyone going to care? And I was like, well, of course they're going to care. This is the opioid crisis is sweeping the country, right? When I was in Cincinnati, I mean, John, we heard some of the most heartbreaking 911 calls, like to the point where I said to our producer, I know that's compelling, but do we have to play a 10-year-old saying, mommy won't wake up, daddy won't wake up, please help?
Right.
Right. There is nothing that wrenches your gut like a child, you know, calling 911 to get help for mommy and daddy. Yeah. And, you know, those are the kinds of things that stick with you. And, you know, so yeah, you have to get beyond that place that says, you know, it's shameless self-promotion. Telling your story is not a bad thing if it provides value and helps others.
Right.
That's not shameless self-promotion.
Right.
That's doing a service. So there is power in the pain, right? But just get past yourself saying, well, you know, nobody's really going to care. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do care, you know, especially if you can help me avoid, you know, a similar pain, right? And, I set a goal on how many families I want to touch over the next couple of years, and I'm going to hit that goal come hell or high water. And because I just feel like, if I can help, one family avoid that.
Yeah.
John, there is nothing like, seeing your grandson say, "Daddy, come on, it's time to go," and having to watch your son tell his son that he can't leave. When we go to visitation, and I take my grandson and he says, "Daddy, come on." He's like, "I can't go." And it breaks his heart every time.
Yeah.
Because, our grandbaby does it every time. He's like, "Daddy, come on."
Sure.
And, it is the most difficult thing you have ever had to sit through. And, we incarcerate 2.3 million people here. We're better at it than any other country in the world. And I wish we weren't so good at it. And I wish we were better at second chances and understanding, that we're not helping,
right.
The situation by locking people up is not always the answer.
Right.
And we are, sophisticated enough that we can find other solutions besides mass incarceration. So I hope that one day during our lifetimes, we'll see that. But in the meantime, I've got some work to do so I can make sure that when he comes home, he's able to provide value in society, even if it's just by sharing his story. And that would be worth its weight in gold.
For sure. Wow. Mark Hayes, wow, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks
sir.
for the great work you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the great work you do. I saw your accolades here, man. You were killing it on this show.
My secret is just getting great guests. So see, that's why I have you in here. I can't imagine there are some folks out there that say, "I want to work with Mark Hayes." So let's get them directed. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to my website at markhayesconsulting.com. I'm on all social media at Mark Hayes TV, at Morning Maniac on Twitter. I still kept the TV handle.
There you go.
So you can find me. I'm easy to find. Just Google me.
What time do you get up these days?
You know what? I get up at 5:30 because I work out.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
okay,
but it's like sleep until 9 for me.
Okay, that's right. That's right. You get to sleep late on your entrepreneurial gig,
exactly.
Right? I love it. Mark Hayes Consulting. Wow, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, John. What a pleasure.
Folks, hey, just a quick reminder. Speaking of problems in your entrepreneurial business, if you've got some problems that involve administrative tasks, bookkeeping, some issues that you really shouldn't be dealing with as the owner, you need to be out working with customers. Here's the answer. S.E. Escobedo over at Office Angels, she's got a whole team of angels that she basically diagnoses your problem and picks one of those angels and sends them in. They fly in, get the job done, and fly out. And they do it on an ongoing or as-needed basis. And here's my suggestion. Just go to her website if you're shy, officeangels.us, but give her a call. Better yet, 770-442-9246. Explain what your problem is, and she will find a solution. She's done that for my business, and I know she will for yours as well. Hey, and folks, just another quick ask. North Fulton Business Radio is the search term to find our show on all the major podcast apps. We would love it if you would go find the show and subscribe, and then give us a 5-star review. It's not about me. It's not about Business RadioX. It's about our tremendous guests like Mark that do great work, and we want them to be found. So folks that potentially need their services can use them. So if you could do that for our guest, we would greatly appreciate it. So for my guest, Mark Hayes, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.